Proposal arguments. You see here that there's a picture of a record, and you may be wondering, what does music have to do with argumentation? Well, as it turns out, when you're composing a piece of music, there are many complicated things that you have to think about if you want somebody to actually want to listen to the music. You want to be thinking about dynamics, how loud and soft it is. You want to be thinking about the movement and the pacing, and you want to be thinking about the volume and all these different things that you're doing with music. And with proposal arguments, creating a good argument is a lot like creating a good composition. There's a lot of things to think about. And my goal is today is to help you to figure out how to make a proposal argument, which, by the way, is what you'll be doing for your final paper. Um, how to make this kind of argument in a way that will actually be music to your audience's ears. So, first of all, let's look at what is a proposal argument. A proposal argument is a clear call to action, as it says in your book. It's the kind of argument that says we should or we ought to. These are things that matter to our most basic values, the things that we care about. Or it can be something that we associate with our resources, like our money. These are issues that come up in every presidential debate. How should we spend the taxes that we pay to the government? How should power be allocated? Who should make these decisions? Whose values should be met? Are we thinking about mothers and fathers? Are we thinking about religious groups? Are we thinking about corporations? What are the values that are going to be met here? So it's really important to think about when you're thinking about proposal arguments, what's at stake here? What do we want to do? And you might be asking yourself, okay, I can see how that works on a big level, but how does it work for this class? How am I going to write about something for this class that is a proposal argument? A couple things to consider. First of all, what are your values? You want to be thinking about what's close to home, your family, your culture, what you grew up with. Your major in college, what are you studying? What are the issues within that major? Your job, what do you do at work? Are there any things that you would like to see changed? Have you ever thought, we really should do this, or we should really change this? And then technology. How does it fit in all this? Well, the great thing about technology is that it overlaps with all these other areas that we care about. It's one of the reasons why I chose it for this class as a theme, is because a lot of the questions about technology clearly relate to what we value and our resources, but they overlap with our everyday lives, what we study, where we work, our family life. That isn't to say, however, that you have to write about technology. There are many other areas and many other issues that you could explore that don't directly relate to technology. But if you haven't found a topic yet, or you're not sure what to write about, a great thing to do is to look at a part of your life that you're interested in and see how technology affects it, and see if there's something that should be changed about that, or if that change is good and we should accelerate it. We should try to include more people in that change. So, we've talked about what a proposal argument is, talked about topics you could write about with it. If you want more individual help on that, please don't hesitate to let me know. But next, I want to talk about strategies. Strategies for proposal arguments. We have Tolman, claims, and stock issues. These are the major strategies they suggest in the chapter. And one thing that I'd like to point out is that these are not meant to be used alone. In fact, a really awesome argument includes aspects of all three of them. So even though I'm going to talk about them separately, I want you to remember that they all work together, and that you'll want to include elements of all of them in your final paper for sure. So first of all, let's talk about Tolman. In your book, you've already seen a lot of examples of Tolman as you've been reading the chapters. They're on pages throughout the chapters that we've read so far. However, you may not have really thought about what each of these things mean, and if you haven't, that's okay, because we're actually going to study it in detail next week, but I want to give you just a quick example. So a Tolman argument, you basically come up with a major claim. My claim here is you should choose to attend Utah State University. This is what I'm trying to convince somebody of. And I'm using all data that I found from Utah State's website. So if I'm going to make this claim, I have to have some reasons to back it up. And that's what's below here. I've got 3 reasons. My first one is it has a beautiful, safe campus. Utah State is a great place to go to school because Logan was recently listed as one of the USA's safest cities and is rated number 2 on the list of best college towns. And USU's campus is clean, it's surrounded by natural beauty. It's a great place to go to school. Now, even though I've got those grounds and I feel pretty strong about them, I also have to consider possible rebuttals. These may come to me naturally, or it may have to talk to different people to get some ideas of why might not this be the best argument, or what could somebody say in response to this argument. So an example would be, sure, Logan is pretty and it's safe, but it's a small rural town. There's not really any nightlife there. And the closest big city is over an hour away, which if you're flying in and out of the area could be a little bit hard to get to. So those could be possible rebuttals to why maybe the campus isn't the best ever. The warrant is a little bit different. The warrant is the underlying assumption for the reason. So the reason it is a beautiful, safe campus, my assumption is that safety and beauty are desirable qualities. That pretty much everybody would want those. However, I can't totally assume that. There might be other values that are important, and so that's where the rebuttal comes in. Some college students have values like being close to home or family, or having access to bars and clubs, or living in a culturally diverse area that might even be more important to them than safety and beauty. So that would be their rebuttal. So after I've considered my grounds and my warrant and the rebuttals for this, let's look at our next reason. USU is a leader in academic research. Again, I have some grounds for this. I have examples of undergraduates and how much they're involved in research. I have examples of what the research is done on. And notice that most of this research is scientific, and that's where the rebuttal comes in. Sure, there's a lot of great scientific research, but what about the humanities? Maybe students in those fields won't get as much funding or opportunities. Again, looking at the warrant, why is academic research even important? Well, if students get the opportunity to do research, they'll have that real world experience, and then my backing supports that. Students who do research in college will be more likely to get a job later on or get into graduate school. Again, another rebuttal though, research opportunities don't guarantee that you'll get a job, and not all students have an equal opportunity to do research. So, a couple things to think about with that reason. Let's go to my next reason. USU has many resources to meet students' needs. Again, I'm giving a lot of examples with grounds. I'm talking about online classes, face-to-face classes, flex classes, lots of options there. We've got exercise facilities, student housing, meal plans. We've got citywide system of free bus transportation, lots of resources. However, again, looking at the rebuttal here, there are some resources, like on-campus parking, that do not meet the current needs of the student population. So there's still some resources that might be lacking. And then the warrant here is that college students need and want housing, transportation, schedule options. These are generally things that people bring up when they visit campus. However, one thing to challenge this warrant is that not all college students are the same. For instance, traditional young college students might use all those resources, but what if you're an international or a non-traditional or online student? You're probably not going to be using the exercise facilities if you're an online student who lives out of state. So this might not be the best argument for them. Again, the rebuttal helps me to see where my argument might be missing, or maybe it also might help me to examine if I'm really talking to the right audience. Am I just talking to young traditional students? Am I talking to a different audience? Something to consider. All right, so we've talked about Tolman, we've looked at a claim, and we've looked at reasons and rebuttals against that claim. Once I've really thought about an issue and I've really examined it, then I'm really able to evaluate the strengths and the weaknesses in an argument. And that's why Tolman is so important. It helps me to think deeply. Now, after I've done this kind of work, another thing that I'll want to do is look at major claims overall. Claim types. I've got definitions, I've got cause and effect, I've got values. We've studied all these in depth in the last couple of chapters. One thing that I hope you noticed as we read the article we watched the video from Kentaro Tayama this week, is that in his argument that he was making about the ways that we should or should not use technology, he used these claims. His major question was, does technology end poverty and problems? If not, what does? You can see here that within this question is the cause and effect issue. What actually is going to cause an end to poverty? What's actually going to solve the problems that we have? Is it just technology? Well, he clearly shows it's not just technology. Technology is a great thing, but it's not this magic bullet that's going to solve everything. And there are other issues that have to be considered. And he talks about the importance of people, and he talks about the importance of, administrative groups and all these other things that, especially people, that play into all the ways that actually makes technology make a difference in an area. So one thing really important to consider is within your argument, what are some of the underlying claim types? Is it cause and effect? Is it values? Is it what you're defining? If you can have these embedded within your larger argument, then your argument's going to be a lot stronger. All right, stock issues. Oh my goodness. Cannot overemphasize enough how important this strategy is. You can see I've got a lot of question marks over here. That's because the strategy of stock issues is basically all about asking questions. In your book, there are several pages. Up here you have 256, 257, 258. These are all lists of questions that you can look at to help you. I also wanted you to read Nardi and O'Day this week again because they have this chapter that really focuses in on questions and the questions that you ask and how that helps people to make decisions. They use that example of the school where they're trying to decide if they should, have their newsletter be, just a paper copy or if they should just, email the newsletter out to everyone. It seems like a pretty simple question. It doesn't seem like a big issue until you start asking all these questions. And once they ask all these questions, then they're able to make a decision that really meets the needs of the people involved. And so as you're doing your own paper, I encourage you to go back to these pages in the book, back to Nardi and O'Day, and look for these same kind of questions that you can ask about your topic. What's really at stake here? What observations do you need to make? What's the big picture? What's the big vision of this issue? And what are some of the consequences? What are some of the alternatives? All these things can really help you to dig deeper and to really understand the issue that you're talking about and eventually really convince your audience, which is the next step. Don't forget your audience. A lot of people, when they're writing the paper, they can come up with a lot of good reasons, but their argument ends up being ineffective because it doesn't reach their audience. So first of all, if you're going to reach an audience, you need to know who are they? Who are you really writing to? And to determine that, you need to ask yourself, well, who can actually take action here? Who actually can do something about this issue? And once you know that, then you look at, okay, what do these people know? What don't they know? How are they going to respond to the view that I'm putting out there? Are there costs or sacrifices required? Is this going to require them to pay more money? Is this going to require them to spend time? Is this going to require things to change? What other options are there? If I'm writing about nuclear power as an option, I have to talk about the other options, wind energy and hydroelectric power and coal energy. I have to show that I've considered these options and I have to show why nuclear power is better. And why should they care about this issue? Probably the most important thing. If you think back to our Tolman example, why should a student or parent care about going to Utah State University? Well, that's kind of already embedded in there. If my audience is students, they have a vested interest in thinking about where they're going to college. But I've also got to think about, am I targeting, a student who's on campus or a student who's off campus? Obviously, if I'm talking to you guys, my online students, your needs are different than a lot of the students who are on campus all the time. And so if I'm going to think of reasons that are going to convince you to choose Utah State University, they should be centered to what you guys care about and what your values are. So, in conclusion, as an overview of all the things that we've talked about, first thing is think deeply. Second thing, consider all claims. What are you defining? What are the causes and effects embedded in this? What are the values? Next thing, ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. And finally, identify your audience. Know that you're really hitting the group who can make a difference, that's really going to care about this topic. If you do all of these things, the awesome thing that can happen is that you can actually make a difference. Your argument can actually change people's minds and can actually change the way that we do things. And that's the whole purpose of learning about argument. So, When you're thinking about argument, please remember the things that we've talked about. I'm going to post this Prezi without me talking over it so you can go back through it. And if you have any more questions about your topic or what's going to work and how you're going to make your interests fit into a proposal, just let me know. I really believe that all of you with these tools can make something that will be music to our ears. And I look forward to hearing from you more soon.